All right, we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel, We Love Comics. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to one of my videos. And I really think this type of video is going to help the newer people, people that have been around for a while, and even some of the experienced comic collectors. And I always say welcome to the people that arrive. I mean, considering this is my second video for the day, so if you haven't seen the other one, don't hesitate to check that out. But I always say hello to those who arrive. I mean, considering I didn't announce this, and just to hit play, to have this many people already show up, even though they're showing 0 watching, I always want to give a little shout out. So come enter the chat if you start seeing this live, or leave your comments afterwards. But Horror Breakdown, hello, always tends to be first. Quiet Storm, Retro Collected, Mark G, Johnny Future, John Hinojosa, I'm sure I screwed that up. I have Telepathy, and he says, when you have money, yes, that definitely helps. Wild Child, Theory 23, Michael, Tina, Ricky, Punisher is here, Herbert, welcome. All right, so it's showing up to 2 people watching, even though that was about 15, 20 comments. And I put that on the screen so you can actually see the chat. So if you're watching this later on, you could see some of the conversation. And I always encourage people to join in and share your thoughts, because the community here on my channel is pretty positive and people tend to help one another. And that's one of the things I want to instill in my channel and my advice. Because I see a lot of people, I mean, I've been watching these videos now since about 2015, so it's about 4 years worth of experience watching and participating in comic book channels and comic book videos. And I see a lot of channels that are, or actually, you know what, not even channels, but people that are leaving comments, especially newer people, always asking about how you get the deals and how they never get them. And I really want people to start changing their mindset, because the biggest thing I see, and this goes for more than just comic books. I mean, this can apply to stocks, bonds, precious metals, anything that you spend money on, even getting houses or cars. People tend to buy things on emotion, which means a lot of times somebody doesn't know they want something until somebody else starts talking about it. It's one of the main reasons why celebrities and sports figures tend to be the ones selling products, and the companies are willing to spend millions of dollars to have them endorse their products. Why? Because people tend to idolize these people and will believe in whatever they're promoting and not ever stopping to think that they're just getting paid to promote it. So people tend to base their purchases on emotion. So when it comes to comic books, and of course this is a comic book channel, so we're going to focus on that, even though this stuff can help you anywhere else in life. Let's say, for example, that video I made earlier this week, or earlier last week, about the that Weapon X guy, or whatever his name is, that Rob Liefeld character. One of the things I asked on the live show, for all those that seem to all of a sudden want that character, I said on the live show, can one person please explain that person's superpowers? And not one person can do it. So a lot of people don't base things on their research of a character, their information that they've learned, because that sometimes takes effort. It's a lot easier just to have somebody else tell you what to get and then just go and buy it without the research. And that's why, for example, when I was telling people years ago to get the Ultimate Fallout 4s and the Edge of Spider-Verse 2s and the first appearance of Silk, first appearance of Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew, first appearance of She-Hulk, you could get those books for under $20. But now, for example, that there was a rumor, and like I said in that other video, if you haven't seen it, I hope you see it, it's still just a rumor. Now all of a sudden, books that you could have a year ago bought for, like for example, my 9.8, I paid $157.55 for it. I went to check how much I paid for it. So I have a She-Hulk #1, 9.8. I paid $157.55. That same book, based on a rumor, now people are selling them for $400, $500, and $600. So emotion plays a big part, because, you know, I hear sometimes from the quote-unquote negative people in this community that when they say things like, oh, Chris, you're one of the people that's the problem with comics, because all of a sudden you mention a comic and the price doubles and triples and people can't afford them. Well, 3 days ago, you could have purchased the She-Hulk, a 9.8, probably for $150 to $200, maybe $250. So how come you didn't get it then? Or how come you didn't buy it 5 years ago when you could buy a very fine to near mint copy for $20? So people tend to not take responsibility for their choices to do something or not do something. And regret is based on the fact of not acting or acting too early on something. And one of the biggest ways I can take advantage of sales is unfortunately taking advantage of the majority of people who don't want to do the research, who don't want to look for deals, who don't want to take the time, and they just either buy something just because somebody else said it or sell it because somebody else said it's no longer popular. I mean, like, prime example, look at the first appearance of Apocalypse. How many people are searching for that book right now? Or the first appearance of Ultron. You can get the first appearance of Ultron right now in a very fine. I've seen them for $80 or less. 3 years ago, that would have been a $500 book. The best time to buy a comic book, especially key issue books. Now, I'm not talking about comics that you want to read, because obviously the best time to buy those is when they first come out. So I'm not talking about books that you can read, because even if it's an Amazing Fantasy 15, you can get a reprint. So there's always ways to read a book without having to spend thousands of dollars. There are people that will always make excuses instead of seeing there are multiple ways to do things. Prime example. If you see the video I did earlier today, and I hope you will check it out, where I sent in 4 of my comics that I think are probably the best 4 comics I've ever sent in to get graded, one of them is Brave and the Bold 28, which is the first appearance of the Justice League of America. Now, that's a book I've wanted for years, but because of the fact that there was going to be a movie, and there was all the hype, all of a sudden that book skyrocketed, and it got too expensive. Well, luckily, I guess in the sense of buying books, because the movie did not do so well, all of a sudden the value of those comics went down because they heard from everybody else that the movie was bad. Those people didn't buy the book because they liked it. They bought it purely for speculation only. And when they saw the prices starting going down, instead of holding on to them and realizing that, you know, any kind of investment will have its peaks and valleys, they panicked and sold them. And when you flood the market with something that most people don't want, what happens to the price? They go down. So I was able to get a book that is valued around $2,000 for $1,300. Which is a $700 savings, which is roughly about 40% off. And a book like that is not going to stay low. I mean, prime example, look at what happened with the Fantastic Four movie, the last one that Fox put out, which is probably the main reason why they ultimately ended up selling their company. I was telling people when that movie bombed, and I knew it was going to bomb. There were many different reasons. But when that movie bombed, nobody was buying Fantastic Four books. And I was buying, I think I bought like 3 copies of Fantastic Four 48, 2 of them at 5.0s. I paid an average of $325 for those books. And I bought like 5 or 6 Fantastic Four 49s, all under like $70 and under. And I was telling people, that is the time to buy. When you see a movie that does well, the worst time to buy a book is during that time. Why? Because everybody now wants that book. And because people base things on emotion, they have that urgency of, I have to buy it now. And that's where you'll tend to overpay. Now, obviously, if you have millions of dollars in your bank account and you can afford to throw whatever amount you want at a book, then this doesn't really apply to you. Now, if you've seen the fact, like I've said to people about the fact that I've lost 90% of my jobs, I'm still trying to find some DJ jobs. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to work tonight, but they canceled it because of the fact of the Islanders in the playoffs, so I'm losing income for the entire week. I struggle financially as well, but I can still get books because what I do is I tend to buy them when they're cheap. Now, obviously, like one of the subscribers said earlier, it does pay to have a little money, but there's always ways to get money. Like, for example, one of the things I'm currently doing is, and this is why I stress to people all the time to buy multiple copies, I'm actually selling some of my multiples of my key issues in the form of mystery boxes. And if you're interested in that, it's in the description of this and every video. It's all the way at the bottom. I have different packages that I'm selling, and what that does is allows me to get some income so I can turn around and buy better books, like the 4 books you saw in the video that I made this morning, and then turn around, get them graded, and then sell them later on and be able to buy a house, because that's my ultimate goal. So unfortunately, most people tend to make the mistake of not accepting the fact that there are many ways to get things. Like when somebody says you can't afford a Fantastic Four 48, and they get mad at the price being so high, and saying speculators like me and many others, they seem to think I'm the only one. If that was the case, I have a lot more power than even I thought. But many speculators, they just buy things because somebody else said it's hot. Now, if you want to read Fantastic Four 48, you're telling me you can't get a reprint? You have to have the original? And if you wanted it so bad, why did you wait until the prices went up? Then all of a sudden you wanted to buy it. Why didn't you buy it the day before? So those people are the ones that are always going to make mistakes. They don't want to take responsibility for their choices to pass on something or buy something straight on emotion. And what I want to try and convince people is you can make deals. But remember, a comic book is not milk. It does not expire. So if you miss an opportunity, there will always be times that when another book comes out or another movie comes out or another teaser trailer or something comes out, people will pay attention to that. It's what I call flavor of the month. And all of a sudden, a very desirable book will, slip under the radar. That is the time to pounce. The problem is, like for example, I made a video the other day talking about the She-Hulk, telling people that there is a rumor that she might be getting a TV show. What do you think what most people did once they heard that information? Now, they could have seen it also from Reggie's channel, which is another person that I highly recommend. Shout out to him again, because I got the information from him. Or any other channel. What did you think most people did? They went out that day and bought it. Now, if they would have really wanted that book, if they bought it the day before, they'd pay half the price that they have to pay now. And this is just based on a rumor. What do you think will happen to the price of that book if that rumor ends up ultimately being confirmed? Price is going to go even higher. Now, I was telling people back in 2015, I was repeating it in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 to buy books like The She-Hulk. And yet most people passed it by. But because all of a sudden now there's an announcement and everybody wants it and they have this energetic flow, everybody follows that energy into buying something that they could have bought for 4 times as less the day before. So are people buying it because they really wanted it, or are they buying it because they're jumping onto a train called the flavor of the month? And you'll also see, if you're a person that sells books, the worst time to sell a book or anything is when the price is going down. Because remember, most people base that, like, for example, with stocks. Here's the difference between comic books and stocks. Stocks can go to zero. Comic books will not. I mean, especially key issue books. So the best time to buy a book, if you see a movie that bombs, obviously, I don't want any movie to bomb, but if Hollywood isn't going to take the time and effort to make a movie based on the character and the way it's supposed to be, and they change it, and they're surprised that people don't like it, and then they say you're sexist or racist if you don't like their changes, that's going to affect their movie. That is going to lower the price and the demand of the comic. That's the worst time to be selling your book. Especially something that is very key. Now, I'm not talking about the Scooby-Doo 12s of the world, or, something that doesn't matter. I'm talking about key issues, like I was saying about that Brave and the Bold 28. That book is not going to stay down. Even if the next Spider-Man movie bombs, you'll see a decrease in the price of those books. Do you think that's forever, or do you think that's temporary? And the problem is people wait so long, they say, well, I'll wait for a dip. Well, let's put it this way. Let's say, for example, the She-Hulk. I was buying that book back in 2015, 2016, and for a very fine, on an average of $25. Okay? So I was paying for very fine books. I have a couple of copies that I paid $25 or less. Some of them in the teens, but let's just say $25. That same book now is being sold on eBay for around $100. Now let's say that $100 dips down to $50. Sounds like a great deal, right? But I paid it $25. So even though there was a dip, it was a dip from a higher price. So you're still paying more. And that's where people have to be careful. Now, obviously, if today's the first day you're buying comic books or getting back into comics, you cannot base it on things that have happened in the past. You can only go from this moment forward. But if you're not willing to do the research, if you're not willing to learn about what it is you're spending your money on, there's an old saying that will apply to you. A fool and their money are soon parted. So the problem is, there are people that will get mad at people like me and others instead of saying, well, maybe I should have researched, or maybe if I really wanted that book, I should have bought it before there was a movie or TV show announced. People tend to not take responsibility for their own choices. So if you want to buy a book, realize that, like I said, it's not milk. It will not expire. If you have the ability to be patient, you will always find deals. But if you buy the first one that you get because, oh my God, I got to get the book now because everybody's buying it, and you wonder why you overpaid, and if all of a sudden a rumor's not true or a movie's not good or they cancel a TV show and the price goes down to the point where it's half of what you paid, you're not going to be happy. And that's one of the reasons why I tell people, if you're buying a book solely for its profit, you are going to be disappointed more than you'll ever be happy. Because here's the thing with the books that I buy. I buy them because I like them. I buy them because they bring me joy. So if the price goes down, I don't really care. Obviously, I don't want that to happen. But it's not the end of the world if a book goes down. Because I'm not buying it solely for the price. To me, the price is an added bonus. So use your mind. Don't be afraid to go to yard sales. Don't be afraid to do trades. Don't be afraid to rake the leaves or shovel the snow of somebody's property to earn the money that you want to get a book. There's always a way. You are limited to your ability. Like I said, when I lost 90% of my income and I all of a sudden didn't make money anymore, I could have said, woe is me, and feel depressed and do nothing. But I decided, okay, one of the things I've explained to people for years is buy multiples of books. So if you ever want to do trades or you ever want to sell them or have to sell them, you can and still own the books. Well, that's exactly what I've done, and I've kept myself from becoming bankrupt. And we're eventually going to use these books that I'm buying to sell to turn around and buy a home. So there's always a way. The problem is most people are taught that, you know, the victim mentality, that it's always somebody else's fault and somebody else did this to you and, you know, you have to rely on other people. No, you are responsible for your choices. What you do and don't do have consequences. So if you don't want to be patient, if you don't want to research, if you don't want to check values of the comics or anything that you're buying, well, is there any surprise that you're not happy with your choices? That's why one of the things I've said for so many years, don't listen to what the masses of people say. The masses of people don't research, and they base things on opinion, their feelings, and what other people regurgitate. And that's one of the reasons why I've said that, you know, for hundreds of years, the masses said that the world was flat because they were told by the church. And you were executed if you said otherwise. So instead of people bravely standing up for the truth, they tended to just conform. That affects everything in life, even something as simple as comic books. I mean, I hear people all the time, like, bashing PGX, and they've never bought a book. They've never tried them out. They only base it on other people. But yet I see, and you could easily look up videos from people that got books graded by CBCS and CGC, that they were amazed at how low or how high the grade was, and they weren't expecting it because it was either too high or too low. But yet no one wants to talk about that. My thing is, if you have integrity, it's got to be always, not just a certain way that fits a bias. So if you want to buy comic books at the right time, first of all, you got to know what the value of the books are. Second of all, you have to know what the market is doing. Third of all, you have to know as much about the character or the book or the company as you can. You have to listen to trends. You have to pay attention to rumors. You have to see which ones are BS and which ones are potential. You also have to realize that even if a rumor is true, it does not guarantee success. There are many comics that have been optioned for movies and TV shows that never saw the light of day or ended up being absolutely horrible, or ones that were great that fade into the, into the ether. So the idea is you don't want to pay more than what a book is worth. To me, if I'm not paying under 30% of what the current value is, and I base the value on what eBay sales are going, because that's what the market is telling you. The market is giving you a free price guide by showing you what people are willing to pay for a book or a product. All you have to do is go to eBay, type in whatever it is you're looking for, do the highest bidding or the highest auctions or the most recent sales, and go to the list that says completed sold items, and you'll see comic after comic or product after product listing what a certain book or a certain item you're looking for has been sold for. So if you're not willing to do that, you're going to pay too much. And then if a movie's bad or a TV show is bad or it doesn't come to fruition, people panic sell. I mean, how many people right now are talking about Weapon H? How many people are talking about the Cosmic Ghost Rider? How many people are talking about the Red Goblin? Months ago, you couldn't buy them for a high enough price. C Plus says, can't see the screen working, but listening. Try refreshing. Sometimes refreshing will help. But I see it all the time. People base things on what other people say. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with getting information from people. But don't solely hear what a bunch of people say and take it without researching, without verification. Because what if they're lying? What if they're wrong? What if it's just their own personal opinion or their own personal bias? Never make your own decisions based on what other people say solely. Use it as a factor to apply to your research. Because trust me, most people will overspend for a book when they want it now. Why do you think, for example, remember Blu-rays? Look how cheap Blu-rays are. You can get people that are still buying them, if you're even buying them anymore. You could probably buy a Blu-ray for $49 at this point. Well, remember when Blu-rays first came out? Blu-rays, when they first came out, were $999. And people paid that. Why? Because they wanted to be first. They didn't want to wait 2 or 3 years to where it dropped from $9.99 to about $2.49, and then $1.49, and then $99, and now $49. You probably can even get them cheaper for that now, because most people aren't even buying them anymore. So my point is, if you base things on emotion, if you do not research, if you solely go by what other people say, and if you refuse to be patient and have to buy now, you will overspend, and if you are selling them, you will tend to sell them for less than probably what you paid for. Breaking even is not a successful transaction. Because remember, if you went to a Comic-Con to get stuff signed, you have to factor in the cost of what the tickets were and how much it cost. If a person like Rob Liefeld wants to charge you $60 to get a New Mutants 98 signed, you have to factor that into the price. Just because you ignore that doesn't mean that money was not spent. So if you bought a book for $100 and then you spent $100 on the 3-day pass and then you spent another $50 to get it signed, you no longer spent $100 on that book. You spent $250. Now let's say you got it graded. Now you have to get the signature verified. That's another $18. Then you have to get it graded. That's probably around another $20, considering if you do it at the actual Comic-Con. And if you want it sent back early, you have to pay extra for that. That's probably another $20. So lo and behold, by all the time that you spent and all the money that you spent, that $100 book cost you $300. So you could tell everybody you spent $100, but you didn't. You spent $300. Just indirectly at times. So if you turn around and sell that book you thought you paid $100 for, let's say you double it, you sell it for $200. Guess what? Congratulations, you lost $100 on that transaction. And then all the fees that eBay and PayPal will take out of you. And that's the problem. Most people do not factor in the additional costs. Probably why they don't own their own businesses. Because if you don't know the difference between net and gross, then you will be unsuccessful more than you will be successful. And there's a cure for that. It's called research. It's knowing what you have to do to make something successful. Why do you think I made that deal with PGX? It's because I get them graded for free. I get free pressings, free dry cleanings, free signature verification. I pay only for it to be shipped. So that's all costs that no longer apply to the total amount of what I spend on a book. But people will always say, well, PGX costs less. Sells for less. Well, if that's the case, I can always take them out of the slab. So the idea is you have to base things not just on what a bunch of people say. Because unfortunately, there are bullies anywhere in the world. And they will gang up and make you feel inferior. And they will say, oh, you don't like that? There's something wrong with you. Or, oh, you don't wear the new latest shoes? What's wrong with you? Or, oh, you don't follow the latest sports team? What's wrong with you? And they use emotion to control you. If that's the way you want to live, it's very easy to fall into that trap. But don't blame others for your choice. If you want to be successful, you have to do your own due diligence. You have to do your own research, which means you can listen to all sides. If you are only listening to one side of an argument, you're only getting half the information. And how is that beneficial to you? And I see it all over the world in all different topics. People have their own personal bias where they are unwilling or unable to listen to another side to get the full picture. If you have half the pieces of a puzzle, you may never know what the puzzle's supposed to be. Or at the very least, you don't get to see the beauty of a completed project. So, I encourage people to listen to people, but listen to all sides. Sometimes you can learn more from your enemy than you can your best friend. Because a lot of times, your best friend will never tell you what you want to hear because they love you, they don't want to hurt you. Sometimes you need a blunt response. So many people will not even listen to this. Many people will just go about their own business, and that's fine. I can't or won't put a gun to your head and make you think differently. But I also will not ever have anybody point to me and say I'm the reason why they failed at something. Because you have to take responsibility. If I tell you to jump in a bowl of flaming liquid and you're dumb enough to do it, whose fault is that? Now, was it nice for me to recommend somebody do that? Probably not the nicest thing. But if you're silly enough to do it, you're the one that pays the price. So be more responsible. Put in the effort. Learn about things. Take people's advice. Take chances when things are not expensive. Don't just buy it when everybody else wants it, because then you have to ask yourself, did you really want it? And if the answer is yes, then why didn't you buy it the day before? Why didn't you research it? Why did you wait? Most people are afraid to answer those questions, and that's why they tend to fail. And like I said, if you get a book graded, if you pay to get it signed, if you pay to have it delivered to you faster, if you paid to go to a Comic-Con, that's added expenses. If you paid $5 for a Mylar, to put that comic book in. That is a cost that you have spent that is no longer in your pocketbook, wallet, or bank account. And unfortunately, most people do not factor those things in. And they wonder why they're not succeeding the best of their ability. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying that I'm some wealthy person, but I've been able to, since 2001, work part-time. My average work week since 2001 has averaged about 14 hours a week working. And I've yet been able to maintain a home, a family, and be able to buy some pretty decent comics. Now, obviously, you don't see a lot of 9.8s of things like the first appearance of Spider-Man or anything. To me, low grade is better than no grade. I've said it so many times. You know, if I have a 9.8 Amazing Fantasy 15, I wish, or a 0.5 Amazing Fantasy 15, I wish, guess what? I own Amazing Fantasy 15. If I wait for a 9.8 that I can't afford, then I'll never have it. How is that helpful? How is that helping your enjoyment? So let me tell you something. Who wouldn't want to be sipping Dom Perignon and having the best food in the world if they had the finances for it? But I promise you this, if you got stuck in the desert and you're dying of starvation and somebody handed you a piece of half-eaten toast, you'll eat it like it's the best food you've ever had. Sometimes it's all about appreciation of what you have, and maybe even what you can afford. But these generations these days, it's all about me, me, me. What can I get? It's never enough. Instead of appreciating what you have. One of the things I love about growing poor when I was a kid, growing up poor, is the fact that it made me appreciate everything. So if I have a 0.5, if I ever am lucky enough to get a 0.5 Amazing Fantasy 15, I am going to jump up and down like I won the lottery. Because I appreciate what it is that I have, and I could say I have it. Would I love a 9.8 of that book? Absolutely. Do I have $1 million plus to spend on it? I sure don't. I would rather get, for $1 million, I would rather get 20 0.5 Amazing 15s than one 9.8. Because first of all, how many people would be able to afford that 9.8, if it even exists? But I guarantee you, a lot of people would be able to afford the 0.5s. So which one do you think would get me my return on my money quicker? You know, if you have to wait 10 years to sell a book, that's 10 years you have no access to that money. But people don't want to think that way. And that's okay. You have the choice. The wonderful thing about free will is you have the choice to do the right thing, the wrong thing, or nothing. But if you don't think there's consequences for it, it doesn't matter how many people pat you on the back or how many TV programs that tell you you're okay. You're the one that suffers. So take responsibility. Do the research. Learn what you're talking about. Watch videos like this and many other channels that are there to help you. If you're watching channels that do nothing but make fun of people, put people down, and make you feel inferior, you really want opinions of those type of people? And yeah, like I Have Telepathy says, Marvel Milestone Editions. Anyone that complains that people like me and others are raising the price of comic books, like for some reason I have the influence of millions of people, if they're complaining about the price being too high, I ask them this. 1, why didn't you buy it when it was cheaper? And 2, why can't you buy a reprint if you really are only buying it for the love of reading it? Instead of saying or admitting you're just mad because you were waiting for a deal and it didn't happen and now it's too late. Whose fault is that? And R.J. Taylor says, $1 million, I bet you would get a higher grade, Chris. Of course. I'm not going to sit here and deny it. But like I said, if I had $1 million, I'd actually rather get several 0.5s. Because then I can turn around and sell or trade those and upgrade and not spend the extra money. There's always ways to do it. The worst thing to do is buy a $1 million comic that's worth $1 million. Where does it go from there? Goes to $1.1 million? But what if I bought 10 0.5s, undervalued, and turn around and trade them and pay less money and then get an upgrade based on those that I've sold because they'll sell quicker. It's all about common sense and thinking more than just the moment. You have to think in the future. That's why all of these comics that I've been predicting for years, most people thought, well, this year it didn't happen, and this year it didn't happen. Oh, look, it's been 3 or 4 years. I guess he's wrong. Well, I told people back in 2015, well, actually 2016, to get the She-Hulk #1. It took 3 years, but how much are you paying for that book now? The idea is to have patience. You're supposed to buy things before they erupt. That's like bragging about sex you've had after a climax. The whole goal is the climax. If you're starting after the fact, what are you gaining from it? You know, the whole thing is the fun part. The climax is the end. Jerry P says, love when you start riffing, Chris. Makes me want to grab my amp and plug in and play along. Hey, go for it. As long as it's positive and it helps you. See, here's the thing. The one thing I've realized is right now there's about 54 people watching. Not many people are watching. Some people will get the information. Some people won't. And hey, long time no see. Comic Tom 101 says, what's good, bro? Hope all is well. Good show today. It's nice to see that somebody like that is listening. So welcome. Because I think you and I have had, I guess based on other people, a little quote-unquote spat. I don't understand it, but that's a lot of YouTube is about drama and everything. And I'm actually glad you're here. I was actually disappointed when you unsubscribed from my channel, but the fact that you're watching, that says a lot. And he's another person that can give information, that knows what he's talking about. See, here's the thing. When it comes to anything in life, especially on YouTube, there are people that have different personalities. Some are kind of more alpha, some are more beta, some are shy, some are outgoing, some are opinionated. Sometimes people don't like that. Don't worry about the superficial stuff. Listen to the information. There are so many people that want to point fingers and take blame about what somebody does. You know, nobody is perfect. There are going to be people that get things wrong. It happens. It's all about the intention. And good, I'm glad. Comic Tom says, no drama here, I'm subbed. Absolutely, I have no drama here either. The problem is sometimes people in the quote-unquote community love to try and start fights. They've done it before. So I want to officially say to Comic Tom, I have no problem with him whatsoever. And I'm glad to see he doesn't either. That's adults that can speak and communicate. So I'm very glad he's here. But my point is, you have to think for yourself. Listen to other people, get their information, but if at the very least, verify it just to make sure it's right. Because if you listen to what the average person says, they didn't learn it from their own research. They learned it because somebody else told them about it. That's something a Google search or a Bing search or an Ask Jeeves search can verify or deny. It's just, are you willing to take that information and do what it takes to verify? And Florence said it perfect. It seems illegal to be your own individual person nowadays. Well, a lot of people are trying for a socialistic kind of agenda these days. When it comes to socialism, it's not about the individual. It's about the state telling you what to do. Be careful what you wish for. You might get it. So people that are free thinkers are actually seen as dangerous these days. That's the time to speak up loudly. So here's the thing. You can listen to those who will tell you what you want to hear. You'll listen to those who do nothing but talk negative and do, you know, things that criticize you and make you feel bad. Or you can listen to people that are actually trying to encourage you and inspire you. Anybody that's subscribed to my channel, can you tell me all these bad things I supposedly do? But yet people will do that. And RJ Taylor says clickbait. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Are you talking about my video or somebody else's? Because I haven't had the chance to read the chat. I don't do the clickbait either. Because I think that's another thing. I get mad. There are channels, and I'm not just talking in the comic book community. I'm talking all over YouTube, where I'll see a video title, and I'll click on it, and it will be nothing that the title said, and I will never watch their videos again. Because to me, you know, like they say, fool you once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So these kind of videos, yes, they get long. And yes, I could be repetitive because, you know, you have to also keep in mind this is a live show and people are asking all the time. So I may repeat myself. But maybe that's to instill the point of you have to be responsible for everything that you do. You should verify things. You should learn things. You should know about prices. You should ask all people information. If you're afraid to listen to all the other sides, then, like I said, you're only getting half the information. And how is that beneficial to you? Because remember, whether you overpay or underpay for a comic, it does not affect me at all. I'm doing this because I want to help other people, because that's what keeps communities alive instead of fading and dying. Because there are people who are greedy or selfish or don't want to hear the truth or don't want to tell you the truth. That's what kills comic book communities and other communities and governments and planets. So, like I said, this video is more about just comic books. And John, that's nice. I always mess up his name, but he always said to call him John, so I'll just say Mr. Alfonso did a $5 super chat. So thank you for that. That's really nice of you. And anytime anybody ever does that, I always want to make sure I thank them, because that to somebody to do that, it's a kind gesture. And you know what? We need more kindness in this world. So I hope this video helps you think of a different way, to take responsibility for your choices or lack of choices, to make sure that you listen to all people's information, not just the ones that make you feel good or the things that you believe in. Because how do you ever know if you're right or wrong if you only hear what makes you feel good? Don't be afraid to be challenged, because sometimes, believe it or not, your beliefs could be wrong or harmful to you or not beneficial. And hearing another perspective can actually change you onto a better path. But that'll never happen if you don't listen. It's like a person driving down a road without a GPS, not willing to ask for directions for fear of the people that could attack them or rob them. Not everybody's out to get you. Sometimes people will actually be helpful and go out of their way to help you go in the right direction. But not if you're not willing to ask. So Brick Hunter says, so what book should we look into picking up now? Well, ones that you can afford, ones that you like, and ones that you want in your collection. Other than that, I can't tell you what to buy, because I don't know what you like. I don't know what your true intention is. Listen to the message. You go based on your own research. Learn about books. Sometimes speculate on books. Like Comic Hero says, he's getting an A-Force 1. I bought those the day they came out, so I'm not worried about if all of a sudden there's a movie announcement. Think about where Hollywood is going. Hollywood is going a lot of female. So think about female-driven characters. Now, not just the one-and-done characters. They have to be ones that have some kind of substance. But better to buy it at a lower price than pay 10 times more. And yeah, R.J. Taylor says, tell us, Nostradamus. I can't guarantee everything. I mean, I've gotten some wrong. I mean, I was telling people to get Empire of the Dead because they were saying they guaranteed that was going to have a TV show. Didn't work out. Sometimes it doesn't. But you know what? I have probably 50 of those books. I don't regret buying them because I bought them because I like them. And that's why you'll see my spec videos will do more than higher views than my regular videos. It shows that most people care about the value of a book. But there are some out there that want to blame me as the problem. And that's just silly, and that's a person not willing to take responsibility for the fact that they could have bought a book yesterday but waited until there was an announcement. Now all of a sudden the price is double and triple. Is that my fault or their fault? Even if I had the influence of everybody. And again, Jerry P, that's very nice of you. You did a $4.99 super chat, so thank you. And by the way, if you do a super chat, which by the way is also not mandatory, it's definitely appreciated. There's ability to say something. So write something if you do the super chat. I mean, as much as I want the super chat, well, appreciate the super chat, make sure you make a little comment. So this way I can read it out. So if you ever do that. And he writes a little bit further down, for a great show, thank you. And see, there you go. Sometimes it helps. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go against what the masses say. Because like I said, the masses were convinced for centuries that the world is flat. So if you want to listen to the masses who just regurgitate information without verification, you got to be careful who you hitch your wagon to. So I want to thank everybody. I don't want to make this too long because I know when they get too long, most people don't want to listen. If you watch this in its entirety, if you are one of my power viewers, when this uploads, I want you to proudly display in the comment section that you are a power viewer. And if you're one of the people that did not have the ability to catch it live, but you're watching it as it uploads and processes, if you watch the whole thing, mention again in the comment section how you are a power viewer. Because I always appreciate those that are willing to take the time to listen to entire videos. But I also appreciate people that are in for 5 seconds. If you get a little bit of information, then that's great. I don't charge you for it. All I want is for people to be successful, because when you're successful, we're all successful. Think about that. And I have telepathy says the world is not flat. Well, technically, we don't know how many of us have left the planet to verify. Think about that. And Comic Hero, thank you. That's very nice of you. He did a $5 super chat, and he added something, so I want to make sure. He says, you're amazing to listen to on a drive. Oh, so that's good to hear. And that's why sometimes I like making videos like this, because you don't have to focus on pretty pictures and things. You could just hear words. So you actually can do it while you're cooking or exercising or driving. Just please be careful. Focus on the road. But that's all I have to say at this point. I don't want to keep regurgitating the same thing. So the people that did the super chats, thank you very much. Today, I'm going to do the surprise subscriber shout out. I'm going to give that to... Let's see. I would say I have telepathy, but he would already know, so that would spoil the surprise. I'm going to go to C+E2, whose comment, because they can't handle the truth. Absolutely. Most cannot handle the truth, and that doesn't change the truth. You could not believe in air, doesn't mean you're not breathing it. So keep that in mind with comic books, with stocks, with bonds, with life. Think. Make sure you have all of the information. Because like they say, knowledge is power. So why be ignorant? Because it definitely is not bliss. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you have a great day. If you haven't seen the video I did earlier this morning, I hope you will check it out. If you appreciate this kind of information, giving it a thumbs up shows the support and is always appreciated. I hope I have earned your subscription. And if I haven't, hey, you're welcome to watch anytime. So go check out Comic Tom 101. If you're a person that makes YouTube videos, you are more than welcome to post your link to the channel. Just make sure it is kind, child-friendly, and not one of the hater kind of channels that promotes negativity. Those will not be approved, and I always verify each one before I approve it. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, and don't forget, it's not you, it's not I, it's we love comics. Enjoy the rest of your day, check out my other videos, and be good to one another. Happy hunting!